welcome all you guys to our place. This is the first time we've ever had this many people in our office, so it's like, it's very exciting for me to have everybody here. What I have prepared is kind of just, here's how we think about telling stories for fundraising, but also getting messages out and announcing initiatives, all kinds of different things that we do with nonprofits. And so I would love to be able to kind of get through this and have questions if you guys want questions. Anything you think of while you're going, just throw your hand up and I'll interrupt it because it's not, it's not Shakespeare. We're just going to go through it. So thank you. And Brian is my partner, so wanted to introduce Brian. Brian was like, should I get up there too? And I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna talk more than
That's how it
we
normally goes.
We do a podcast over here a couple times a week, and Brian will ask the pithy, amazing questions, but only one or two. So it's he's the silent, strong silent type. So anyway, welcome to our spot. So I wanted to talk first about kind of what we do and show you guys an example of some content that we've created. And this is a video we did for a group called Bright Start. And it's not a nonprofit, but they work with government to do early intervention for children with disabilities.
Maddox is the most happy kid you can imagine. Always has a smile on his face. He's just the most active, fun-loving kid. We started seeing some developmental challenges for Maddox when he was even as early as 2 months old, and he had not been diagnosed with anything at that time, so we pursued continuing tests. By the time he was 10 months old, he was actually diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Being my only child, my goal was to focus on him for the first few years and of course give him the best of everything. So getting with an EI, Naasha and the Bright Start team, basically just surrounding ourselves with the support that we need to give him the best opportunities in life.
So since Maddox was diagnosed with having a stroke at birth and cerebral palsy, he's since then been diagnosed with epilepsy and autism. And so we followed his journey with his health, and Bright Start and our early interventionists have been there the whole way. And we've obviously had a lot of changes with his health needs over just his short 3 years of living, but it's never been a question as to whether Bright Start and his early interventionists were going to be there to support our family.
So Maddox is just a ball full of joy. I love working with him. He is so sweet and always has a smile. He is very persistent. I'm enjoying hearing him communicate more. He's able to tell us what he needs and wants and his feelings. It is a beautiful opportunity to be able to come in when a family has needs and be able to be there for them and help them through it, answer some of those questions. And sometimes they're scared, they're nervous, they don't know what the future looks like for them, and just be able to point them in the right direction. And it's an amazing opportunity to be able to do that with families.
So for the future for him, we do feel very optimistic. I think it's exciting to see him progress as he has, despite the new diagnoses that he's received. But it's never been a dark outlook. We see so much opportunity for him, and we believe he can do anything he puts his mind to.
All right. So the idea is that, Bright Start offers all of these things, but what we wanted to do was tell Maddox's story because we think that's the important element of this, right? You'll find out about Bright Start if you get connected to Maddox. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. We work with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of associations. We work with the University of South Carolina a good bit. Companies like the National Safety Council that offers safety training. We're working on a Live at 25 program for them right now. So, this is our wheelhouse. This is kind of where we thrive. We do work with some companies, but we love working with nonprofits and associations because of the fact that we can really dive into story, and story is so important to them. So who am I? How did I get here? So my wife was a wedding photographer many years ago. This is me in 2005. I had a 102-degree fever this day, but this is what weddings look like for people. You don't not show up. It doesn't matter how sick you are. I always say, unless I'm missing a limb, I'm going to be there. So I just had to stay away from people. Stay 6 feet away. Use the zoom on the camera. Don't get people sick. But I started with my wife as a wedding photographer. I was a wedding videographer, and I was terrible in the very beginning. I bought a camera from a friend used and just walked around all day with a camera, just pointing into places, and I'd hand them the tape, and I'd be like, there you go, and they loved it, and I had no idea why they loved it because I knew it was terrible, and I just studied and practiced and studied and practiced, and I have no formal education in any of this, and still trying to get better every day. So every time I do another shoot, I'm like, oh yeah, there's another thing I learned. How about that, and so still going. But this was 20 years ago. Good gracious. I just bought that suit from an outlet store. So my skill set is in making videos and telling stories, and kind of what weddings taught me was how to go into a relatively hostile environment and still extract a beautiful emotional story. And so we don't get stopped by anything. So I've come across some fun stuff. You want to hear some wedding horror stories? Let me know. I can tell you. But Brian and I partnered in 2019 to kind of do all of this, and Brian added a marketing element to what we were doing. So I was primarily telling stories and making videos, and the groups didn't know what to do with them. So that was kind of like, they would be beautiful, we'd all love them, they'd sit on the shelf unused. And so Brian kind of brought that marketing element to it. So now we offer the idea of creating it, understanding the strategy, understanding the audience, and getting it in front of the right audience. So why are you here? People don't care about what you do until they understand why you do it. What is the effect? What is the result? Especially for nonprofits, it's so important that story is the commodity. Story is the thing. The effect that you have on people is what you're primarily promoting. Education, associations, it all comes down to telling the story, and this is such an important element of it. So if you want to help people, you lead with story. You start with that. You start with the connection. I think if we look at the Bright Start example, I don't think anybody can look at that and go, meh, but you look at it and you go, I love that they're doing this, regardless of whether I need it, regardless of whether it's relevant to me. If I hear about this, if I hear about somebody that needs this, I'm going to remember that Bright Start does this, and they're going to be able to help. Story opens a loop that your service closes. So, the reason why we can watch a 2 or 3 hour movie is because they open up a question in your mind that they don't answer until the end in good movies. The difference between a tedious 30-second commercial that you hate sitting through and a long movie is story. Is the idea that instead of telling people what you do, you want to talk to them about why. You want to talk to them about what is in it for them. Once the audience is connected, then you can give them the details. All the details are available on all your websites. That's not important. You notice that we didn't give any details about Bright Start. All we did was say Bright Start was there for Maddox. It's very important to this family that they had this early interventionist to come in and help them and try to figure out what's going on with Maddox. And once you get people connected to that, then they'll find out how to get there. They'll find out how to connect. Also, Maddox's mom was connected to Bright Start by another mom who we also did a story for. So that's the way that this should work, right? They should find out about it through their network, and this is a great way of making that happen. So this is not my idea. Here are several references I'll give you for this. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. Started with a TED Talk where he gave this idea that if you talk to people about why you do things and then you talk to them about how, then you can tell them what. And so all of the great marketing is done this way, that you kind of start with why you're there, why people are there, what the result is. Then you get to what on the outside. So I highly recommend this book. The other one is Building a Story Brand. Donna Miller is kind of integral to our way of thinking about things. The idea that you are not the hero in your story. Even as a nonprofit, you're not a hero. The heroes are the people that you're helping, the people that are coming through your program, the members of your association, or the people who are taking your courses. The way Donna Miller puts it is be Obi-Wan and not Luke. You don't want to be Luke. Luke had a bad time. Luke's in a bad spot. Obi-Wan's the guy who can help Luke through the process, and you want to be Obi-Wan. You want to lead them through. Do you guys get Star Wars references? Sorry. Okay, cool. All right, that's my space. You show your audience a brighter future. We always talk about the brighter future. It's always important that you paint a brighter future, no matter what the situation is. Part of being the guide is leading people to a brighter future. And then you lead people through their story. You understand the framework. You understand how people are going to get to that brighter future, and that's part of it. So building a story brand is critical to all of this. So where do you find stories? So as you're thinking about your busy day and the things that you're going on, how in the world are you ever going to find time to do all this? The most important thing is that all of your organizations are filled with people who have amazing stories. Not just the people doing the work. There are people doing the work. There are people associated with doing the work. All of those stories are very important. Passionate connection and emotion are really important to getting these things done well. Your organizations are all probably, I'm making an assumption, purpose-driven. You guys are not there for the buck. You're not there to sell the product. You're there for a purpose. People feel a calling in your business. The stories are powerful because of that connection, because of that calling. So you can very easily tell the stories of people within your organizations as much as you're telling stories of clients. But what you've got to do to find the stories is you've got to start asking talk to the people that are working with them every day. We were talking to a group yesterday that they have a crisis line that people can call to get help, and they don't know how to find stories from the crisis line. I said, well, someone's managing the crisis line. I guarantee you they know amazing stories that can connect. And these are the things that we try to always get to. Clients, students, members all have stories. It's so important that what we can do is to say, I'm telling a story of someone that I've helped, not my story. I'm not telling about me, I'm telling about the result. Their experiences are the purpose that you're here for, right? Whether it's education, whether it's nonprofit, whatever it is, the experiences of people that have had experience with you are the purpose, what you're here to do. You have to be very sensitive not to expose, sensitive, specific piece of information. And I'll reference Gavin and transitions. We've worked with transitions a couple times. It is a situation where you want to be very careful and very sensitive to what they're doing and the fact that you're not exploiting them to get money for yourself, right? But you're celebrating triumph. And when they've had successes and when they've had things where they've really kind of grown and moved into a new future, you're celebrating that new future. And so I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. There's a way to frame that so that you're not exposing things that are sensitive, and again, focus on the bright future. That's really important. So the challenge is to capture these stories well. The challenge is to say, how do you think about a framework to capture these stories well? And if you look back at the Bright Start video, you'll see that we asked her, how did we get here? How did you start to notice that there were issues with Maddox? What did you do about it? Talk about your experience with Bright Start. What was the result of your experience with Bright Start, and what does the future look like? So we apply that framework to it. As we think about that, we say, for any of your organizations, what brought you here? Why here? Why do this? Why do this work? The second step is, what do you think the result is? What do you think the effect of what you do is? And then what does the future look like? Now that you've been in it, what do you want your work to have meant? If you understand the audience's pain points as well, you understand that when someone finds this Bright Start video, we're not interrupting their day to give them this message, right? This is not a 2.5-minute message that we're advertising with, right? What's happened is they have these issues already. They're noticing early intervention issues with their children, and they're desperately looking for a result. And this video is an answer to their problems, right? They're helping with their pain points. So that video could have been 20 minutes long, and they would have watched it because it's their children, and they're trying to help. If you understand your audience's pain points with education, it's I'm in this place, I want to get to a different place. Now we can kind of find that, right? Advertising is a very different thing. You're interrupting someone's day to give them a message that they didn't ask for. So you got to keep it short, and you have to keep it entertaining, and you have to keep it all of these things. What we're talking about in telling stories is you're almost always using this in a response to an inquiry or in response to to something that has come up in someone's life. The second step is finding the right audience. So if you show the right story to the wrong audience, if I show that Bright Start video to a bunch of retirees who don't have little children anywhere in their life, they're not going to respond to it very well. We have to make sure that we're showing this to people who can use it, and we have to understand where to put it, so that it hits the right audience. How are they feeling when they find you? It's much more about psychographics than it is about demographics. Age and location and income and education and all of those things don't matter as much as what is my current state, right? A tire commercial doesn't hit me unless I need tires, right? And so if I don't need tires, then the greatest tire commercial in the world is not going to work. So where are they? Where are they hanging out? What platforms are they on? Is Bright Start is going to send this video out as a response to an inquiry. People inquire about early intervention with the state of South Carolina. South Carolina sends them 4 options. Here are your options for early intervention. When they go to Bright Start, this is the response. And we understand that that's the platform that they're on. This is not for television. This is not for Instagram. This is for answering questions as people come in. We'll talk about that too in a minute. Also, it's about live presentation. If you show it to an audience, how is that audience going to react? Are they looking for you, or are you, again, interrupting their day to give them a message that they haven't asked for? All of these things are really important. Most of the time, especially in our space here, people aren't randomly searching for something to give their time to. They already have a emotional connection to the subject, and all you're doing is just making that connection to you specifically. So let's talk about audience and story. So see, that's exactly what I was hoping would happen. So who's seen Wicked in here? You have, yes. You gentlemen have not. So this is what this is. So I've seen it. I saw it at my neighbor's house. I wasn't going to pay $20 to have it at my house. I don't have any little girls in my house. I have a teenage girl who has rejected it because it's too cool for her. But the 10-year-old in the house that I did watch it at, we had to keep, you have got to stop with the dialogue and the songs, because she just said every word that came out, because they have understood that presenting a good story to the right audience does this, right? And this is a phenomenon, right? It's not a movie, it's a phenomenon. You can think about Barbie from a couple of years ago did exactly the same thing. You can think about movies that have been praised and lauded and all of these things that don't have their audience together. They don't really understand their audience, or somehow their audience didn't hit. These are ones that hit. Here's another example, not to pick on young women, but Taylor Swift knows her audience. You would not catch me anywhere near a Taylor Swift concert. Sorry. I'm not going to watch this for 3 hours. It's insufferable. I don't like it. She wants to reject me so that I'm not there. Now, if my daughter was a Swiftie, my daughter is not a Swiftie, thank God. But if my daughter was a Swiftie, I might take her to a concert because I'm that dad, but I would not like it. And I would not spend $3,000 on tickets, but somebody would, and she knows that. And she has capitalized on that. But it's about story and audience. If she was just writing songs, and she didn't write songs about the things that hit people exactly where they needed to be hit, she wouldn't be Taylor Swift. And so, and there are 1,000 also-rans that can prove this to you, that they write decent songs, but they don't have the story to go along with it, and they don't understand the audience in that way. These are obviously 2 macro examples, but I think it works. So I wanted to talk about a couple of case studies. United Way of the Midlands is a group that we've been working with for 12 years. And, we have some folks from United Way here. So I talked to Joey about this too, by the way, before we did this. So I'm not giving y'all any secrets that Joey's not okay with us doing. But video is a primary method for storytelling for the United Way. And so what happens with United Way is that we are constantly making content for them. We're shooting another thing for them in the morning. We just delivered the Humanitarian of the Year award video this last week. Hopefully we'll get approved in the next couple of days. They're consistently telling the story. They understand their audience. They understand what they're trying to get from people. And they're understanding that they want volunteership. They want people to volunteer for things. They want donations. And it's okay. We're talking about getting donations. It's important that the work that they do is illustrated in the right way. We cover events for them when they have events. We cover initiatives like Young Men United. When they launched Young Men United, we paired that with a lot of video, a lot of stories that came out of the Young Men United. Everyone in the organization is on the same page. Everybody understands the story. Everybody understands the value of it. No matter what department we work with in United Way, they're all clear on what the story is, because it's so super important that they get it right. So Joey says, he gives us a Simon Sinek quote, which I find funny. I didn't tell him that I was using Simon Sinek as a thing, but he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When it comes to philanthropy, if you don't have a compelling story that explains why your donor's time and treasure is important and meaningful and how it will change someone else's life, then you have an incredibly difficult time convincing them to support your mission. This, just ask Joey, how has this affected you, right? And this is his response. I think it's really important that United Way uses these in person a lot. So they go to companies and they show these videos to people in person. And so much of us rely on passively putting something on social media and assuming that it's going to achieve the desired effect. And it's a lot more about understanding your audience and where your audience is and how to find them. And so I figured I'd give you an example of one that
I used to play football almost all my life, but it might not be a chance I would make it to a league. So I want to still be around football. And what Young Men United did, they actually talked to the coaches and everything so I could be part of the coaching staff and see where it takes me from there.
Today, I'm moving my youngest son to college at South Carolina State University in Orange, South Carolina. It's overwhelming. This is the day that I prayed for, looked forward to, and it's finally here.
Mentors are super important for these young men because they really need someone to help them, to guide them along the way. Someone that's been there, done it before, and now, kind of guiding them through that pathway to success.
He was selected to be part of the Young Men United. It was like a group that I wanted him to have. So he was able to get that meal structure that I yearned for him coming up as a young boy.
It's exciting me just exploring my options in this real world and what's, out there for me to do. So for me being on my own, it's going to be challenging, but also going to help me mature. So I'm really excited for that.
So again, this was a different style, obviously. So we were like, okay, we're following Tylige while he's packing up to go to college, and we just rode with him to SC State. And we, talked to him throughout the process. We catered this a lot more to kind of reaching Tylige and his age group to say, this is a program I want to be involved in because look at what happened with him. He told us that he wanted to be in the NFL, and that was his plan. Right? His plan was to be in the NFL, and of course, that's not super realistic unless you're a mega superstar and you already know it, right? And so one of the great things about kind of showing a story like this is to say the mentorship was helpful, but it's also helpful that this guy really gets it. He really understood what was going on, and this is a big day in their life. So So let's talk about Camp Cole. So Camp Cole is another big example of how we do it. We made this film for Camp Cole in 2022. The end of that year, we asked all of our staff what their favorite project for the year was, and everybody said Camp Cole, because we got to hang out at camp all summer. It's summer camp. We were out at the lake. We were doing activities. We were going around the kids, riding the horses and doing crafts and all that stuff. It was great. But their video is over 7 minutes long. And when she first requested a 7-minute video, I was like, what? And so, because nobody wants a 7-minute video. They're like 15 seconds, 12 seconds. Can you get it to 8 seconds? And we're like, nope. They wanted 7 minutes because they wanted an in-depth story about what happens. Because when Margaret Deans goes to present in front of a group, she doesn't want to talk for 7 minutes. She wants the video to talk for her. So we get 10 or 12 different examples of people talking about camp and all of the things that go on, and we covered almost every week of camp that summer. There were some nonprofits that would not let us come cover their camp, which I thought was odd, but that's how it works. Their primary use for this is in person. Their primary use for this is when they have an event at Camp Cole, they have a fundraiser. Margaret Deans comes and speaks for a Chamber of Commerce or anything. The video is played for that, and that's their primary use for this. she tells us that most of their fundraising for the last couple of years is on the backs of showing this video. They credit the video. That's why I wrote it out the way I was going to say it. They credit the video as the key to their fundraising, and I think that's really important. Margaret Dean says, Camp Cole couldn't put a value on the Camp Cole 2022 video. It's been our most important successful marketing tool we could have ever invested in. We've used the video in so many ways, from fundraising, storytelling. The video has allowed for us to take our viewer into the day in the life of camp and immerse them into our mission. Having a marketing tool that so accurately shows who we are as an organization continues to allow for us to grow not only our fundraising efforts, but connecting with people who could benefit from camp. I think this is so great. And every time we talk to her, this is the result, right? She goes, I couldn't do it without you. The good news is we're doing it again this year. So everybody who's on staff in June, we're going to be able to go through camp through the summer, which is going to be super awesome. So I'm not going to show the 7-minute video, but I took a 53-second clip from the video. So.
There are a lot of kids at these camps that'll come in the first few days super nervous, super scared of the water, or flat out like, I don't want to be at camp attitude. And those are the same kids that at the end of the week are crying that they don't want to leave. I love watching them build relationships here, watching these kids who may seem like the odd ones out sometimes have a whole group of kids who are just like them, and adults and peers that love on them, and it's awesome.
It has been like Disneyland over here. It's been the best place on earth. The children, they're finding role models. They're finding hidden talents they never knew they had. They're finding friends. They're finding more things that they didn't know about themselves. That's what we strive to do here at Camp Cole.
So, I think Camp Cole is a great example of, they are just super professional at raising money. They do it so well. It's amazing. Every time they've told us that we want to do this thing and we've got to raise $8 million or something insane, like we go, yeah, good luck. And they do it because they understand how to connect that story to the audience. It's so important. When they set their mind to something, they just accomplish it. It's amazing. And they put a lot of work into it. They're really, really smart about it, but they really understand how to find those places where they can tell stories and understand the audience. So here's the challenge. Don't tell people what you do until you tell them why. You notice we didn't tell you how many cabins Camp Cole has. We don't tell you how many acres they have, how big the pond is, whatever. We do talk about the medical facility in there. That's really important. If you're a kid coming to Camp Chemo, you need to make sure that there's a medical facility there. That's all important stuff. But we lead with the experience. We lead with the idea that's there. Story is about results. So story connects you to fundraising. I mean, it's so important. It's not a fluffy thing that you should do once you get enough money. It's something that you do to get to that place, to raise the money to be able to accomplish your mission. You find the right audience. Finding the right audience is so difficult. It's so important that, Instagram has become the television of our time, right? So if you think about Instagram is like putting an ad on TV, a 30-second spot on TV during the news or something, right? You're going to be able to hit people passively. You're going to be able to interrupt their day to give them a message they didn't ask for, but it may not be the right platform to deliver an emotional connection. And so, understanding where your audiences are, understanding that if you present in front of people, if you have an event at your place, one of Camp Cole's big things is they do an oyster roast. And at their oyster roast, they show this video and they, ask people for donations and usually get them. So what if you don't have the capability of doing videos? Number one, you got a phone in your pocket. The phone is amazing. I'm doing a presentation this afternoon for a real estate group that is how to get better pictures and videos on your phone. It's important that you have the phone in your pocket and you can collect these stories on your phone and just get them out there. And if you look at how I started, there's a blunt object there. I bought a video camera and followed people around. I had no idea what I was doing, and I learned. I developed it over time. Write an article. Get the story together. Write an article. So many nonprofits and education associations, they skip on things like LinkedIn, where You have B2B connections all over the place. People are in a business mindset. They're thinking about how can I get involved? How can I donate things? Articles on LinkedIn will go a long way. And so do a photo essay. Just take a bunch of photos. Understand that what you're trying to do is to do this consistently, do it often, do it in such a way that people can attach to it. And it doesn't have to be a kind of complicated, elegant solution like what we have produced for these folks. You can do it just to get started if you're not doing it. And so it's really important that you do it. Whatever you do, share their stories. It's just the most important thing that y'all can do, especially in this organization. Like I said, if you sell a product, tell people about what your product is. That's great. That's what you need to do. We do work with a group that sells fishing lures, and the guy makes fishing lures. And so we talk about how it works, how it catches fish, right? That's important. We also talk about why. It's important to know why he's connected to making lures and why he makes good lures. But with you guys, sharing the stories is the most important element. So thank you. That's all I got. How did I do on time? I don't even know what time it is. 9:07. Do we have time for questions? All right, everybody got to run. Also, we're at As Told by Agency on all socials. So if you want to connect to us, please do that. I'm Bill at astoldbyagency.com if you want to send me an email. Questions? That was a lot of information in a short period of time. Sorry if I overloaded your brain. Donald Miller says when you... Yeah, go, Brian. This is what he does. Watch this. It's going to be great.
How would one go about building a culture of story in their organization and getting people to buy into the fact that they need to be on the lookout for stories all the time?
Well, and I think the way the United Way does it is great because what happens is everybody in United Way understands that they get their funding from sharing stories, right? Is that accurate? And so, when you think about that, the more you communicate with your direct folks, the people that work with you every day, the more you communicate with them that we need to capture this, we need to talk about this, we need to do that. If you change your mindset as you get to it, so I've meant to ask this, who's in the room here? Nonprofits, can you raise your hand? Oh, okay, cool. Well then, there you go. So perfect. Even if you're a single or double or triple person organization, it's important that if everybody's on the same page about understanding it, you're going to look out for these things. You're going to find it. When we went to Bright Start, now we worked with Bright Start before. In this particular case, we didn't make a video about Bright Start. We wanted to go and start with these case studies like this. And so what they did was they went out to their early interventionists, and they have 20 or 30 early interventionists, and said, who's got great stories? And we got 2 in the upstate. We got one in Columbia. We're about to do another one in Columbia. I think once you kind of develop that culture and you decide that this is something that's important to you, it comes down from that. Does that sound right? You knew the answer, so it's like that's baited.
Can you offer any tips on being consistent with your storytelling on social media in a long-term thing?
Man, it's tough. One of the challenges that you have with social media especially, and it comes down to choosing your platform, right? So if you think about the 7 popular platforms, which might go to 6 here any day, if you think about where your audience is, you just pick that, one that is right. If you get engagement on LinkedIn, if you get engagement on Facebook, I can imagine a lot of nonprofits still get good engagement on Facebook. I think a lot of your donors are on Facebook. A lot of your donors are on LinkedIn. But you find that place where you resonate and you just double down on that. Don't worry about the rest of them. Don't worry about if you're not on TikTok or you're not on Instagram or whatever it is. I think every platform has its pluses and minuses, and you can maximize your effectiveness on whatever platform that you're on. But once you find something where it resonates, where you get response, then you just double down on that. And once you get the response, if you go through sales training, one of the one of the hardest things to do in sales training is to get no every single day, right? Once you start getting yeses, it's pretty easy, right? Once you get a yes, you're like, I want to call somebody else now, you know, and that's kind of how it works with social media. You just got to keep going until you have that response, and once you get that, then double down on the platform that you're on, you know. And so I think social media is important. Obviously, a lot of times, especially with nonprofits, it's moved down to the bottom of the list of importance. But it could be a place to communicate if you know your audience is there. And it really depends on, you know, what I love about the Camp Cole example is that they have figured out, now they do social, they keep everything up on Instagram and all that stuff, but they understand that their audience is primarily in person. Their audience is primarily people that they can make eye contact with, and they can demonstrate with these kinds of stories kind of what, you know, what the benefit of all this stuff is. So, yeah. Good questions, Brian. Thanks. It's like,
I was just wondering how you guys handle, you know, most of the videos I shoot at the zoo, I'm sending to media. So
Yeah.
I'm shooting, you know, horizontal.
Yep.
And then my social media guy's butting heads with me because
Yep.
he wants it vertical.
Yep.
How do you do you have two people shooting?
I have an inelegant answer to that, okay? My cameras are extremely high resolution. It's a really dumb answer. I wish I had something better for you. But the cameras are really high resolution, so I can get a good resolution vertical image as well as a good resolution horizontal image. However, there are some things that if we know it's just going to Instagram, we will turn the camera sideways and shoot vertical. We also have the ability to do a much larger image on this camera, so I can shoot in a much larger frame so that when I cut out the vertical, it still works. Most of the time, the challenge is not getting it done at the top 20%. Most of the time, the challenge is getting to that 70%, right? So once you're actually showing up consistently, then you can start to get better, right? Then you can start to do it a little bit better. You know, also we try to make sure that we understand intention when we go into a project. So if we know we're going to cut it vertically, we want to leave a little bit more room at the top of the image so that when you cut it vertically, it crops it and it pushes it a little bit higher up. We can reframe that. See, this is all technical. Listen, I'm a nerd, so you get me going, I'll not stop. But anyway, but yeah, the idea is just to have that in your mind, and obviously, sometimes we'll have somebody there with a phone, shooting with a phone, and that's for social. And we're here with the cameras, real cameras shooting for, I say real cameras, I'm sorry, that sounded insulting to phones, but you know, we're here shooting with our cameras to make this kind of content, and then we're shooting with a phone to make vertical content. So it just really depends on the situation. You know, a lot of times we'll take that vertical crop out of the 4K. Yeah. Yes.
We get lots of images and videos. I'm Terry Toll with the Indian Waters Council,
Oh,
Boy Scouts America,
nice.
Boy Scouts of America, now Scouting America.
Right.
This is Matt Presson, he is a colleague of mine there, and
Nice
we
beard.
get bombarded with images and videos.
Mhm.
Oh, look what my kid did.
Yep.
Here's this, you know.
Yep.
And it's great, but most of them, folks get upset because
They don't get used.
use most of their
Yep.
content because it's not of a high enough quality or resolution
Sure.
to put out. So, any suggestions on how to?
Well, first of all, I'll say that my daughter was a Boy Scout
Hey.
4 years ago, so she's too cool for it now. Sorry.
Oh, that's too bad.
She's too cool for almost anything. So,
gotcha.
you know, but she doesn't come out of her room because, like, the living room is not cool enough, you know. So, it's not you. It's definitely her. So I think, you know, what has got to happen is, again, there has to be a strategy around it, right? The good news is that the current environment has killed the idea of quality. So yay. Not good for us because I used to be able to make a living on quality, right? I used to go, this is a quality image, what you can get otherwise is not quality. Ha ha. But I can't do that anymore. So the good news is nobody will notice quality if you frame the story properly, right?
Gotcha.
So if you look at you know, just a wide example, Netflix has a requirement for cameras to be able to do a Netflix series, unless you're doing a docuseries where you have something that's recorded on the phone that's very important to the story, and then they'll include that in a second, right? You can't create it on a phone and then send it to Netflix, but a lot of that is just understanding how it fits in. So understanding what the strategy is, meaning that what we've got to do is reach parents, right, who are looking for something for their kids to do that's constructive that may not be sports or may not be church, right? So if I'm looking for those things, that narrows down your audience, considerably, right? And so if you understand where those folks are, let's say they're on Facebook, which I imagine they probably would be, they're probably also paying attention to Instagram and what people might share with them on Instagram. Also, I would assume also TikTok would be a big thing for y'all if you could figure out how to make that work while it lasts. And so, but if you have that strategy, you understand that if you're going to Facebook, quality is not a factor, because Facebook is going to kill your image regardless of how good it is. Instagram, quality is not as important as so if you took something from a parent, understanding that what you wanted to do is, let's say we're posting a couple times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, this type of thing where we tag people in it, we understand what so you're Indian Waters Council for like this area, right? Yeah. So you say troop 92 or whatever it is. They send in these pictures. Now you incorporate Troop 92. You invite them to collaborate on the post. You post all 12 images that they sent. Here's a great event that they had this past weekend. You tag them in it. You understand who's the director. You tag the director and invite them to collaborate. All of that comes down to the strategy, just understanding that that's what you're trying to accomplish. The more you can incorporate them into what you're doing, all of these pictures you see on the wall here are all folks that have worked in our studio over the last 7 or 8 months, right? We didn't start this till June. But a lot of them are podcast guests of ours. A lot of them are clients that have come in to shoot stuff in the studio. And in every one of these faces is a network that I can take advantage of, right? So this is 200,000 people that I can take advantage of on these pictures that are on the wall. Not take advantage, that sounded weird, but but we can use, we can utilize their audiences, right, to reach people that we wouldn't reach otherwise, and that's all part of the strategy. So if I'm having a podcast in here, I want to think about who my guest is. What kind of audience does my guest have? What does their audience want, right? And then all of a sudden I'm developing a strategy around that. So the deluge of photos is a good problem, other than you've got to have that ability to weed those out and get them out there. And so the story for you comes down to, this is how active our troops are. This is the fun people are having. Don't you want to be part of this fun too, right? And that's the messaging. So you can kind of think about it, that way, and just put it out, and then deal with those things as they come along. But I would say, getting started, sorting through it, that's the biggest challenge, right? The old weird analogy of eating an elephant, which I don't know who eats elephants, but you just have to do it a bite at a time, yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Are we good? We're on time?
We're good.
Yeah, all right, cool.
Go for it.
Thank you, good question. I think that this element of story can go to billboards. It can go to what you're trying to do. Too many times I drive through. I'd noticed billboards because I'm in the business, I guess. But so many times people try to write a entire novel on a billboard, and it's all about what we do. It's all about, here's the bullet points of the 8 things that we do, right? And there could be so much more accomplished with 3 words. If you say, here are the 3 words that would get you to call me, right? And that doesn't have to be what you do at all, right? And so for Indian Waters Council, I was a Boy Scout too, by the way, member of Indian Waters Council. I also quit because I was too cool. I'm not sure.
Runs in the family.
It was not true, by the way. I was not too cool. I was the ideal candidate for all of it, but I thought the girls aren't going to like it if I'm a Boy Scout. It's not true. It's not true, but I was wrong. But especially for y'all, I think that the stories that the families have of think about those Eagle Scouts. I've never met an Eagle Scout that wasn't successful. There's never like a bum Eagle Scout, right? It just doesn't happen. And so if you think about if you think about the idea that that this is what we're here for, we're here for this, leading people from early childhood, from Cub Scouts all the way through Eagle Scout. That's our plan. That's what we really want for people. That story will resonate with just about anybody who has kids, right? Now, Brian's kids are already athletic. My kids were not athletic, so neither of my children were athletic. My daughter's thankfully artistic, so that's artistic. She draws and does things. So my son was just aimless completely all the way through. He's 21 now. He's found it. He's figured it out. He wanted to do business. We just didn't know. Can't do business when you're 12 or 13 unless you're just super talented. But we got him in Boy Scouts. He didn't like filling out all the paperwork, so he was done. He's like, I'm not doing this assignment that they give me, so leave me alone. I'm not doing it. And he lasted in Boy Scouts like a week. But that's just, you've got to say, even us, the Boy Scouts resonated with us as a way to give kids direction and all of that. Anybody that's got kids that hears that, you're not saying this is dumb, and you know what I mean? This is like something that's really important to people, is finding something to do with their kids. Brian's kids are in sports. Probably will be in Boy Scouts too. I don't know. Yeah. Because yeah.
Just so I can fit into the schedule.
Right. Exactly.
And just so you know, statistically, youth who participate in sports and scouting have increased, what do you call it there, educational enrichment. They have fewer days absent, and they have more positive character attributes, like doing their best over being the best.
Now, if you have a parent tell that story instead of you telling that story, right? So I love you telling that story, but what, this is why I didn't get up here and go, you guys should make videos with us. Here's my number, right? You don't believe me. As soon as I say it, you don't believe me. But if I have Margaret Dean say it, or if I have Joey say it, it's much more resonant with y'all to say, look, here's the result. Here's what we were able to accomplish with people, and I think that's part of it. And so people voluntarily sending you photos is amazing, right? One of the hardest things that we have with nonprofits especially is to say, okay, if we're telling a story about something that happened a year ago and we weren't there to film it, now we've got to use photos to fill in the story, right? Just like Maddox, we had to use photos of Maddox, in the hospital and growing up and all of those things, because we just met Maddox in October and, weren't able to get all of that stuff ahead of time. So having those photos is a gift. You just got to figure out how to sort through it. Yeah. Yes, Gavin.
I think maybe I'm the only one, but talk to me about your process of helping a nonprofit understand the pricing.
Yeah.
I think, for a lot of us in development, we're probably bought in completely with what you're doing, and we know we need this as a tool in our toolbox.
But how in the world do you afford it?
Yeah. I think that's always been the biggest rub that I've had.
Sure.
Is selling even a $1,500 video.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So all of it really comes down to, what are we going to accomplish, right? So, any of our examples of success stories come down to the folks that we do the work for know how to maximize the value of the work, right? And so a lot of Brian and my partnership comes down to, we would make beautiful things for people that they love, and they would put them on the website, and they go, hope this is going to do it, right? And that's not it. Where we want to help you, where we want to be involved, regardless of costs, is we want to be involved in saying, if you spend $1,500 with us, how do I make you $30,000 or $50,000, right? All of a sudden, that $1,500 doesn't look like a big price tag, right? If it's a vanity project completely, right? And we love that. We love making you look good and feel good, but we want to help you make money. A vanity project is very expensive for $1,500, but if you can help you raise $50,000, then $1,500 sounds like a low cost. Yes.
And for those of us who definitely don't have $1,500 in our budget, you can reach out to organizations like the Central Carolina Community Foundation, and they have capacity building grants, so it's a perfect way to build the capacity of your organization to raise more, so that might be it. And
we have the budget conversation with people who only have $30,000 to spend on a video. We have the budget conversation with people who only have $1,000 to spend on a video. That limitation is always there, regardless of what your budget is, right? And so, you know, there are clients that they'll say they'll hire us instead of hiring a full-time marketing person. And so that $60,000 a year is justified because I don't have to have a full-time employee, you know, and then I can use as needed. So there are all kinds of ways to do that. The biggest thing for us, though, is we don't want it to be a vanity project. We want it to be something that earns. We want it to be something that makes you money in the long run. And otherwise, you know, again, I did a video last year. It was for a guy who loved his car, and he wanted to do a video about his car, and we were all into it because we love cars. Yeah. And so we just did a video about this guy's car, and he loved it, right? And he didn't want to get anything out of it. He just wanted to be able to share it with his friends because he was really proud of his car. And so, whatever, you know, it's good. I love it. Let's do that if we want to do it, right? But that's not what we want to do with nonprofits. That's not what we want to do with education or with anything else. We want it to be beneficial to you. So all of that comes down to, we sit down and we say, okay, who is your audience? What is your platform? You know, that framework of, you know, who is your audience? What is your platform? What is the message we want to get to them? What's the frequency that they're going to need to get it? Do I show it in person? Do I show it on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is? And we just develop that strategy along with the content so that we get benefit of it. And then we check on it. How did it do? How's everything going? Could we use it a different way? Could we cut it from a minute and a half or 2 minutes into 30-second snippets? It's what we did with Bright Start. Each of these interviews became a 25-second video, right? Or multiple 25-second videos. I think we ended up getting 11 or 12 videos out of this 2.5-minute video. Because the 2.5-minute video tells a story. If you're going on Instagram, let's put that 20-second video of Nasha saying, you know, I love Maddox and I love the fact that Bright Start has been able to be there and help him get to the place he's at now and get to his bright future, you know?
And if I can just,
yeah.
I don't want to walk on your presentation.
No, you're fine.
We've worked together a couple times this
yeah.
fall. One thing that we did that I was glad was because our clients at Transitions can leave tomorrow. They could get housed and
yep.
they're gone to Washington State. Was telling my director, let's capture the story right now because it's a good story, and then we'll figure out with Bill and as told by team how we're going to best use it. Whether it's going to live on our homepage or I'll come back to Bill and say, hey, I want you to format this specific for Facebook
yeah.
and an event. Because you've got, I know this from working with you get more than the final product.
Oh, tons more, yeah.
There's always ways that you can come back, but emphasizing like, if I can capture the story right now, I don't have to release it today. Mm-hmm. We've got a really good story in the hopper that we're sitting on because it's when, and this will be something that we'll talk with Bill and these guys about, is when do you think this is going to be the best fit, and how do we format it for that platform? So
yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of an endorsement of what y'all did. That's where I like where you guys are not like, all right, we're kind of done with this, but
yeah,
we've done the first step.
Well, when it was a frustration of mine for many years, you know, for a long time, if I wasn't working with somebody like Joey Wallace at United Way who knows what to do with it, yeah. we just kind of gave it to him and go, you know, good luck, let us know if you need anything. You know, and it never did turn out. So did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Kind of a question.
Okay.
For those of us sort of backed into marketing
mm-hmm.
without a lot of education.
Yep.
Can you give us and those of us who are doing our own social media for our organizations, what are the current standards regarding permissions? And I know you're working with children, but just
yep.
in general, you've got some footage of an event you did,
sure.
or you're putting some pictures up of people who are in your group, but I don't really know what's
yeah.
normal and acceptable anymore.
Well, let me start off by saying I'm not a lawyer, so trust everything I say based on the fact that I don't know. But in general, the way we approach it is anything in public is public. So if you go to the state fair, you go to a football game, you go to a parade, or you go to Soda City Market, that's public, okay? So you don't need releases for that kind of stuff necessarily. It's always better to have releases than not have releases. In other words, you have a document that says, I release my image to your organization. I'm never going to get paid for this. That's an important element to have in a release. I am never going to get paid for participating in this video. And the statement from a lawyer that we got is across the universe and forever, right? And it's like, I'm never going to pay you. So if I put this video on TikTok and I get 10 million views and they invite me on Good Morning America and I sign the NFL as a client, you're never going to get benefit from that, right? And that's very, very important to do. For minors, so when we work at Camp Cole gets a media release. Schools get a media release, right? So a lot of those are media release covered. We just did a piece for United Way at an elementary school, a bunch of 9, 10, 11-year-olds. All of that's released from the school end, and we check on that. The thing a lot of people don't think about is copyrights. So if you got to think about, like, for instance, when we do a podcast for the university here that is NIL focused that can't be associated directly with the university. That means that we can't have university logos in it. That means that if the linebacker from the football team shows up in a Gamecocks hoodie, which he did, we have to blank it out, right? Or we have to have him change his shirt. All of that stuff is very important because not that, well, the university will find it and tell us to stop. That'll be number one. They will seek you out. There's apparently somebody who does that for a living. They just search social media and have you remove logos. But it's not that if you use an Adidas logo or if you use a national logo that somebody's going to find you. That's probably success, right? If I use a Disney theme and somebody says, we just did a thing for Camp Chemo that's a Wizard of Oz theme, and we're like, whatever. Disney finds us, or Paramount, whoever did Wizard of Oz. If they find us, then that's success, right? They'll tell us to take it down. We won if they found it. But we have to keep those things in mind. The other thing is music. So background music is copyrightable. So if I have incidental music, that's one thing. But if I'm using the music to cut something, so if let's say I'm shooting an event and there's a band playing a copyrighted song, and I record that copyrighted song and I cut the highlight video to the copyrighted song, that's a violation of copyright. So we've got to be aware of all of those things. Now, to your question, you don't know, right? So you have plausible deniability, right? For now, right? Until you're contacted. I know because I was contacted by a publisher of a song that we used in a video to say, if we don't remove the song from YouTube, they are going to pursue legal action. So I said, oh, okay, I guess I'm not allowed to do that, right? So, it's a dumb way of finding out, but that's how I learned on a lot of those things. I had a commercial pulled because a kid had the wrong T-shirt on. He had a T-shirt that had a logo on it. The owner of the logo called me and said, this kid can't be in the spot, right? So I had to pull the spot. I had to remove the kid from the spot, put the spot back up without the T-shirt in it, right? That's how we learn all of those things, and unfortunately, that's could be how you have to learn. But I would say be respectful of people, obviously. Understand that you cannot do a interview against your will, right? So if I'm interviewing with you, that means that I consented to interview with you, right? However, I could also be, I could also sue you for not liking your shirt or the way you cut your hair, and that's an important element to understand. You can't ever completely avoid that stuff, but the more you protect yourself, the better. And I've got file folders full of releases going back 20 years that I'm holding on to, because we did a spot for the state fair for 4 years. I think I interviewed 300 people for that, and every single one we got a release, because this is man on the street, it's in public, but who knows what they're going to say, right? Who knows when they get divorced, they have custody issues, they have all this kind of stuff, and who knows what's going to happen. And if I've got a piece of paper with their signature on it, I'm covered. So that's kind of the way we tend to look at it.
How are attorneys supposed to contact you?
Yeah. You mean like if there's an issue, how are they supposed? Okay, I don't know. But I will tell you that I've gotten DMs. I've gotten DMs from people claiming to be attorneys. I got that message on YouTube was a comment left on the YouTube, followed up by an email from the group, and so it's up in the air. What we did when we started our company is we used Blair Cato, but we had them, formulate our contract. We had them, look over like legal contracts. The thing about the state of South Carolina is that state of South Carolina is a oral contract state. So that means that if you and I agree on something, then it's up to you to convince the judge that I agreed on it. It doesn't matter whether we signed anything or not. The only reason we sign stuff is for me to say, nope, she signed it, right? But that's not a legally binding document. And so, again, don't trust me, I'm not a lawyer. But I would say, it's all up in the air. I don't know. We don't have a lot of trouble with it, thank goodness. I mean, the good news is we work regionally and sometimes nationally, but most of our work is local. So if somebody has a problem, they just call you, which is nice. So that TV commercial I had pulled, it was two rival schools, and the one school called the other school's president and said, take this commercial off the air, and I won't tell you which schools. But it's just one of those things that happens here. If there's any issue, we try to probably have a conversation about it before it gets legal, because that gets expensive. So, yeah. But it's a good question.
We get a lot of the phishing emails that we're going to be sued.
Oh yeah. I get 1 or 2 calls a month from somebody trying to sue my brother. I don't have any idea why they're calling me. They're not trying to sue my brother, by the way. They just call me and say that we have a warrant for his arrest and we need to serve it to him, and we were hoping you could tell us where he is. And I'm like, I'm not telling you where he is, number one. And I hung up and I called him. I was like, do you have a warrant for your arrest? And he's like, no, it's just a phishing call, So, but anyway, it's, yeah, it's not my problem either way. Like, I'm sorry. Sorry about my brother getting arrested, but that ain't my problem. So, I'm not getting involved in it. So anyway, but yeah, I think all of that stuff is important. I think it is very important, though, not to let that stop you from just doing stuff. And doing stuff is more important. And this slide is really important. This is what I want everybody to do. Don't let the obstacles stop you. Do it. One of my friends says, go ugly early, right? Just start and figure out what works. One of the great things about TikTok and what TikTok has done for us in a social media context is TikTok really wants authentically recorded things, right? Bad photos, but that show things really happening, right? And we're tired of advertising. We're tired of these things that don't work. The reason why we shoot things the way we do is, number one, I love beautiful aesthetic things. I love making beautiful aesthetic things. But then what we're trying to do is remove the impediments between the message and the viewer. So the reason I record direct audio, the reason I have shallow depth of field where you see her in focus and the background is out of focus is because I want you focusing on her. I don't want you focusing on anything going on in the background. It's a beautiful field of flowers behind her. That was at Unity Park in Greenville. I don't know if anybody's familiar, but the daffodils were blooming. I was like, oh, wow. We just happened to hit that, and so that was cool. But the reason we do it that way is because we're trying to remove that impediment. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you from getting started. It's very important, yes.
So to confirm, for phone footage,
yes,
we would film vertically?
No. Depending on your platform, right? So if I'm filming for YouTube, for a long form YouTube video, I want it to be horizontal. If I'm filming for YouTube Shorts, I want it to be vertical. If I'm filming for LinkedIn has now added a TikTok style video feed, right? So you can film vertically for TikTok. I don't think anybody's going to hate you for filming vertically regardless right now, because it's just become a ubiquitous thing. But we tried to make sure that we're filming for the format. This is going to go on our LinkedIn and on our Facebook. Facebook, you can still get away with horizontal, all of that kind of stuff. So it just really depends on the platform. But again, do it both and see which works, right? You do a vertical and it hits, then you do more vertical, right? And that's the way we look at it. I am agnostic to the platform. I just want things to work, right? And so, the reason why we do a lot of the things we do is because we run into those problems and say, oops, the reason I have lights and, the reason I have color behind my couch right there is because if I turn that off, the guest blends right into the background. So I'm using that to help separate the guest from the background. I can also change that color now to reflect a different set and all that kind of stuff. And all of that comes down to problems, solving problems. And so, yes, great question. Anything else? I'm an open book. So I think the money discussion is super important. And we, I think any agency out there will tell you, I don't want to take your money and you not get benefit. It's got to be a win-win for everybody. It's got to be that you're overjoyed with the result and I'm overjoyed with the result, right? And so I don't want to take less money and be aggravated at you because you paid me less money. I want everybody to be happy with it. And so that all comes down to understanding the ratios of that value, and getting the value out of things.
As you develop a culture of video as part of a tool that you use to tell your story, you can start to add video budget to your budget.
Yeah.
And prioritize it. If it's a cultural thing where it's top down, this is what we're doing, this is our main form of communication, then you can start putting it in the budget. So then next year you have more, and then the next year you have a little more, and build up on it. But it starts with the culture of this is our form of it, and then if you prioritize it, it will be in the budget.
And I started my business by jumping into nonprofits and just making videos for them and not asking them for money and saying, here, let's go get some value out of this. And then the next year, magically, there'd be a budget. And they'd say, we want you to do it again. So then they'd pay for me to do it. And so, we did that many times in the very beginning, not now anymore. But I can't afford to do it now. So anyway. Well, thank you, everybody. This is so exciting for me. Oh, I want to get a picture. Hold on. My social media people would be upset at me if I didn't get a picture. Everybody smile. I'm doing it horizontal because I want to include everybody in the shot. Hey, see it there? Good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the time.